Yeah, stay prepared for the up and downs. Life is like a seesaw.
What's going on, guys? Just another critic. We're back continuing Week 7 predictions going into the Penn State versus Iowa matchup. Penn State right now ranked 10th in the nation, headed to Kinnick Stadium to take on Iowa. The Hawkeyes ranked 17th in the country. For those of you betting on the game, Penn State is 3-2 against the spread. Iowa 2-3 against the spread. Obviously, Iowa coming off a loss versus Michigan, where they really couldn't get very much going offensively. They put up 3 points, allowed Michigan 10 points. And so while that offense wasn't really able to get going, I think we got a good idea of just how good that defense is. I understand that Michigan's offense isn't the greatest in the world, but they do have a lot of athletes on that side of the ball. And we saw that athletic ability when Shea Patterson threw up a few deep balls to his guys, and they went up and made some catches. Anyway, with that being said, let's go over the statistics on this game, and we can get further into my thoughts once we go over those. Penn State right now putting up 47 points per game. Defense allowing just 7 points per game. Offense is putting up 305 through the air and 194 on the ground. Defense allowing 189 through the air and just 50 yards per game on the ground. Iowa offense putting up 27 points per game, allowing 8 per game. Passing yards through the air, putting up 250 through the air and 174 on the ground. Defense allowing 167 through the air and 86 on the ground. And so while it's still hard to evaluate Iowa's defense because they haven't really played any, I guess, really great offenses. And so they face Miami, Ohio, Rutgers, Iowa State, Middle Tennessee State, and then Michigan. So I think this will probably be the biggest test for that defense of Iowa when they're going to be facing Penn State, who, like I said, is putting up 47 points per game. And so we thought that that's something that we'd see fall off with Trace McSorley leaving. While I understand they haven't faced any real defensive threats just yet, they did play Pitt, who's looking like they have a pretty good defense this year, and was only able to put up 17 points against that Pitt defense. It's definitely still in question whether or not this offense is good, because after that game, they went to Maryland and blew them out 59-0. And so that Maryland team, who was probably overrated by a lot of us, it is what it is. That's kind of just what happens in the early weeks of college football. And then they went and played Purdue 35-7. And so while on paper this offense has looked phenomenal, 300 yards through the air, close to 200 yards on the ground, they're definitely going to be facing their best defense yet. But at the same time, Iowa, if you guys were here for my predictions, Iowa versus Michigan, I talked about Iowa's lack of their inability to really get consistent play from the run game and the run attack, and they didn't really have a real guy that can carry the ball for them, a consistent 20 to 25 times per game and get them, those consistent yards. And that showed big time versus Michigan. They were only able to go for 1 yard in that game, 1 yard on the ground. I don't think it's going to be any different in this matchup versus Penn State. I don't think it's going to be very different at all. Nate Stanley was forced to really try and win that game for Iowa all alone. And the crazy thing is that Michigan didn't have to send extra defenders to get pressure on him. They were able to send 3, able to send 4. And when you're able to get pressure without sending extra guys, that extra defender is able to sit in coverage, right? So they had 7 or 8 guys sitting in coverage while getting pressure on the quarterback. That's really a tough situation to put a quarterback in, and most times than not, he's not gonna succeed in that type of situation. And so, going up against a Penn State defense who's probably better than Michigan's defense this year. Honestly, this is one of the best Penn State defenses I've seen in a while. They're athletic as hell, they're fast as hell, and it's going to be scary for Nate Stanley because I don't think they're going to get the run game going again. I think it's going to be a very similar showing for that offense of Iowa against Penn State. Except Penn State, their secondary has been phenomenal this year. I mean, obviously, we look at that Pitt game and they allowed 372, but I think that was just one of those games where they just had a rough outing. In this matchup versus Iowa, I've talked about it. Iowa has some athletes on the outside, but whenever you can't get anything going on the ground, like I said, you're able to get pressure with just sending 3 or 4, which I think Penn State is going to be able to do. That just puts your quarterback in a terrible position to try and make plays on practically every possession, because he's going to be everything's going to come down to timing. And when your quarterback's getting pressure in his face, in under 3 seconds, that timing is disrupted. So he's wanting to hit his wide receivers in that first window because he's trying to get the ball out of his hand as quick as possible. But if that pressure is directly in his face, then he's got to scramble, get out the pocket, look for those second and third windows, or his guys are going to have to obviously come across the field and work their way back to him. And so it's going to be a long day for Nate Stanley. The Penn State offense, I still have question marks about them. I've liked what I've seen from Sean Clifford, and we know what they have in KJ Hamler, but are they going to be able to do it versus a better defense on a consistent basis versus Iowa? At this point, I trust Penn State's offense to do much better versus Iowa's defense than I trust Iowa's offense to do versus Penn State's defense. Because what I see happening here, I believe Penn State's defense not only going to play lights out, but they're going to force a lot of turnovers. Not only interceptions, fumbles, they might even go out there and get a touchdown. I wouldn't be surprised at all. And so I think what's going to happen here is Penn State's defense is going to put their offense in very advantageous positions to take that turnover, take that takeaway, and turn it into points pretty quickly. And so I think that's going to be the theme of the night, just like the Michigan game. Obviously, Iowa playing at home. This game historically in the head-to-heads has been pretty close, especially in the past 2 years. Iowa losing 21-19, and then Penn State winning at home 30-24 a season ago. And so while it has been close historically, I think this defense of Penn State this year, like I said, is probably one of the best that they've had in recent seasons. And man, they're just flying around. They're making plays. They're one of the best defenses in the country, right up there with Wisconsin, with Ohio State, and arguably even playing much better than Alabama right now. It's crazy to say that, but they are. And so while I don't know if this Penn State offense is for real, I know this defense is. And I think they're going to put their team in very, like I said, very good position to capitalize on turnovers, and really it's gonna be a game of field position. It's gonna be the special teams. Can your punter put them deep inside their own territory and stuff like that? Some of those minor details, but at the end of the day, I think Penn State's defense is just gonna do too much. They're just gonna overwhelm Nate Stanley. They're not gonna be able to get the run game going, and really, I just don't know what Iowa is going to be able to do in this game, because if they couldn't find much success versus Michigan, on paper, I don't see them finding any success versus Penn State offensively. And so with all that being said, I do think it'll be a lower scoring game. I have Penn State winning it 24-10. Once again, my final score is Penn State 24-10. And I think this will be a great game. This is college football, as I always say. It can go either way. Anything can happen. Penn State can play their worst game and, shit just hits the fan and things just aren't going their way. That happens sometimes, especially when playing away. But based on everything I've seen this season, that is my final score, Penn State 24-10. I think it's going to be a great game either way, Big Ten matchups. And this will be 7:30 start game on ABC. And so with all that being said, I got one more game to cover, and then I'm going to go ahead and do my upset alert picks for the week. But with that being said, appreciate you guys for listening. Appreciate you guys for supporting the channel. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, evening, or night. This is Just Another Critic, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
Yeah, stay prepared for the up and downs. Life is like a seesaw. Some say it's a bitch, man. I couldn't agree more. 1 minute you're on top.